The footage starts with that old, grainy pop, the kind a cheap camcorder makes when it wakes up after years in a box. The time stamp blinks wrong, stuttering between dates like it can't remember what year it belongs to. The frame wobbles, adjusting, light from near dark to dim yellow, revealing a narrow apartment hallway, the kind where the walls feel too close even when you're standing dead center. A man's voice, shaky, annoyed, whispers into the mic. Okay, if this thing even works. This is Unit 3B, my sister's place. Or was. He pans the camera down the hall. Every step creaks like the floorboards are complaining. Paint flakes peel from the walls like dead skin. Something vibrates faintly inside the drywall, not a sound, more a feeling. A low hum that buzzes in the teeth. You can tell he doesn't want to be here, that he's rehearsed this moment and still isn't ready. He pushes open the door at the end of the hall. The apartment looks abandoned in a hurry. Plates on the table, a coat half fallen off its hook, a phone charger dangling from a wall, socket like someone ripped the phone free mid-call. Dust motes swim in the stale air. He steps in, Lena. His voice breaks into two-edgious hope and dread. The camera dips as he runs a hand over his face. They said you left town, but you wouldn't leave without telling me. He moves through the living room. The walls look wrong, patched in places with cheap plaster, but bulging in others, like something pushed them outward from inside. The camera lingers on one bulge, and the hum that low, bone-deep hum grows louder. He steps closer. This is where the neighbors heard the noise. He whispers, scratching, crying. His fingers hover an inch from the wall. From the other side, a slow dragging exhale, like something trying to breathe through thick insulation. He jerks back. Lena. Silence. Then a crack, a soft one, like knuckles popping. Then another. Then another. Then the wall pulses. For a heartbeat, the camera catches something, shifting under the pale paint, a shadow, long and lean, dragging itself upward. He stumbles back into the kitchen. Open drawers, claw marks scored into the cabinet doors, a broken mug on the floor, the sink faucet dripping steadily, but the water stains under it have streaks of brown in them. He flips the camera to night mode. The world turns into sickly green, and the wall behind him moves. Not a metaphor, it moves, like someone exhaling behind a thin blanket. He spins, heart hammering so loud it rattles the mic. A thin crack appears down the middle of the wall. Dust spills from it, then the sound of something pulling skin apart. He gasps, Lena. If that's you, I'm right here. I'm right here, okay? I'm not leaving. The crack widens. Inside. Darkness so black it feels like an open mouth. And from that darkness, a tremor of fur. Not much, a few pale strands, poking through plaster like grass through old snow. But there's blood on them. He reaches forward with a trembling hand. A faint growl rumbles from behind the wall. Low, trembling, and unmistakably not human. He drops the camera. The image tumbles sideways, landing on one lens. The view is crooked now. Half floor, half wall, crack in full frame. The man is off screen, begging through sobs. Lena, please, please talk to me. Silence. Then a whisper, so soft the mic barely catches it. Run. Not a woman's voice. Not anymore. The fur pushes further out. The plaster splits. The shadow inside shifts as a spine pops, vertebra by vertebra, and the wall breathes hard. Once, twice. Then a golden eye opens inside the crack blinking, focus alive. The man screams her name and bolts out of frame. The eye follows. The footage cuts to static. The static clears into another clip time-stamped hours later, or earlier, Or maybe both. Old camcorders weren't built for supernatural timestamps. They glitch when something in the room outweighs the rules. The image flickers on. Bathroom mirror. Dim light. Camera held too close. The man's face looks different now. Panic-wired, sleep-deprived, throat tight with the kind of fear that makes people pray again. He whispers, "If something happens to me, this is proof." There is something in the walls. Behind him, the mirror reflects the narrow bathroom. The shower curtain hangs half off the rod. Claw marks, thin, delicate, but long-lined the tile like signatures. He turns the camera toward them. "These weren't here last night." His voice cracks. He tries to laugh. It comes out wrong, thin, painful. He presses a shaking hand against the scratch marks, and they're warm. He jerks his hand back like he touched a stovetop. The camera tilts downward. Water pools on the floor around the drain, but it's not water. It's thicker, darker, red-tinted. He lifts the camera closer, kneeling. The liquid glistens under the light, thick like sap, like resin, except resin doesn't pulse the puddle, tremulous, as if something is breathing through the pipes. He whispers, "Lena the drain, hexaless." Not air, heat, like the breath of something alive in the dark. The camera whips up to the mirror again. For a split second, not long enough to be sure, but long enough to ruin a night's sleep. A figure stands behind him in the reflection. Tall, hunched, fur matted against, wet skin, face half human, half wolf. Mouth trembling like it's learning how to move. He spins, nothing. The reflection lingers 1 second longer than it should, then dash scratch from behind the bathroom wall. Not one scratch, a cascade of them. Soft, frantic, desperate scratches, like fingernails trying to claw their way out. Followed by something else. The sound of joints cracking, bone shifting, a throat straining to form a sound that isn't ready. A soft, miserable whimper, human pain inside an animal's rearranging. Body, he backs against the door, camera jittering. "Lena, say something. Just say something." Silence. Then a voice, broken, wet, sick with the tearing agony of transformation, hurts. The man freezes. "I'm getting you out. I'm right here." He presses his palm to the wall. Claws press back from the other side, slow, gentle, almost affectionate, until they're not. Something inside the wall gnashes a violent scrape of teeth against wooden studs. Dust rains from the ceiling. The floor trembles. The scratches stop. All sound dies. Then, quietly, so quietly the mic distorts while trying to capture it. A whisper through a mangled throat. "I'm sorry," he whispers back, voice breaking. "For what?" A pause then. "For how hungry I am." The wall bulges outward, a full, violent shove from inside. The drywall cracks and a spiderweb burst. One clawed hand punches through, skin torn, fur soaked in red. The fingers flex toward him. Too long, too jointed, too wrong, he screams, and slams the bathroom door behind him. The footage cuts, snapped brutally to black. The footage resumes with another shaky cut, the kind made when someone hits record. With trembling fingers, the camera jolts as the man runs down the hallway, breath ragged, footsteps echoing off the narrow walls. The apartment seems smaller now, corridors tighter, shadows thicker, like the building is breathing along with him. He slams the front door, but the deadbolt only clicks halfway. It's stuck. He yanks harder. The lock doesn't budge. "No, no, no, don't do this." Come on behind him, from deeper in the apartment. Thump. Thump. Dragging sound like nails across old wood. He spins, pressing his back against the jammed door. The hallway is dark, except for the thin sliver of moonlight leaking through the blinds. Dust floats across the beam like ash dot. The Cumros night mode kicks on, automatically green, grainy, eerie. The bulge in the living room wall is bigger now. It pulses every few seconds, like something breathing too slow, too deep, too heavy. He lifts the camera, whispering, "Lena, please, just say something." The wall exhales. A low, rattling breath seeps out through the cracks. The kind that carries heat, the kind that only comes from a living body pressed too close to death. He takes one step toward it, then freezes. The drywall moves, not bulges, not cracks. It ripples, like someone running their hand along the inside surface, and then a handprint pushes outward from within. Not a human palm, wider, heavier, claws dragging their imprint downward. SCCCCRAAAAPE. White powder falls from the ceiling, floating like winter ash. He wipes his face, his fingers tremble, coated in plastered dust like snowfall on skin. "Lena, I'm going to help use your struss. Stay with me." He edges toward the wall again. The camera microphone picks up a faint sound, not growling, not breathing. Whispering, a soft, disjointed voice inside the walls, not talking to him, but talking to itself. Overlapping syllables like someone arguing with a second voice in the same throat. Fragments catch through the mic. "Don't want, can't stop. So hungry. Not her fault." His eyes widen. He whispers, voice broken, "Lena, it's you. It's really you." Silence answers him, then dash from the far end of the hallway, from the corner where the moonlight doesn't reach. Something shifts. A shape, tall, bent at an angle no living person could stand. Elongated arms scraping along the floor. Fur brushing the baseboards like a slow tide rolling in. The shape moves closer, but its footsteps are wrong. Not footsteps at all. The sound of something crawling through the walls. The man shakes violently, backing into the door again. "Get out of the walls. Please, Lena, come. OUT. The shape freezes halfway into the hall. Then it collapses into itself, folding like a shadow being sucked into a smaller space. It disappears into the wall, the same wall behind him, the same wall pressing against his back. He gasps, shoving off it and stumbling forward. The drywall behind him splits quietly, not a boom, not a crack, a tear. Slow, measured, deliberate. He turns around, camera trembling so wildly the frame blurs. From the tear, a golden eye peers out, blinking, focused, alive. He sobs, "Lena, please, please, come out, please. Just come, OUT. A soft sound answers him. Not a growl, not a word. A small, wet whimper, a sound of pain, of apology, of a creature that used to be human. She pushes her snout through the crack. A half-formed jaw emerges next. Fur matted, skin stretched, teeth too large for the skull trying to contain them. Her breath fogs the air with heat. He lifts a shaking hand toward her muzzle. A moment of stillness, a moment where the viewer thinks maybe, somehow, this reunion will be tender than her. Lips peel back. A low, furious, starving snarl rumbles from her chest, and she lunges. The wall explodes outward in a shower of plaster and dust. He screams as the camera drops again, skidding across the floor. It stops with a sickening thud. Facing the ceiling, dust falls like snow. Heavy breathing fills the microphone. Something wet drags across the lens. A single clawed hand reaches into frame, trembling, shaking as though fighting itself. Then the hand pulls back. The breathing stops. A single whisper crawls through the mic. Run. The footage cuts to black. The footage comes back mid-dash movement. Not a clean cut, not a smooth fade. A violent jolt, like the camera was slapped awake. It takes a moment for the world to focus through the lens. When it does, the frame is sideways. Floorboards are spilled, a shadow that doesn't match any human outline. The man wheezes off-screen, desperate for breath. I block the door. It shouldn't be able to. He lifts the camera with shaking hands. The hallway behind him is gone. Not destroyed, gone. Collapsed into darkness so complete it swallows the moonlight whole. It's like the apartment has shifted, elongated some rooms, raised others, folding in on itself like a lung collapsing. He takes a staggering step backward, and the camera swings toward the living room. The wall that burst open earlier, it's repaired completely. No cracks, no dust, no blood. Smooth, fresh plaster, damp and still drying. He steps closer, whispering, "No, you can't be doing this." His fingertips hover over the new wall. It's warm, and under the plaster, something moves. Something slow, something coiled. Something breathing in deep, shuddering cycles. The wall exhales, again, long, hot, rancid, straight into his face. He stumbles backward. Gagging. Behind him, a noise rises. Soft, subtle, familiar. Scratching, not frantic. This time, not violent. Slow, methodical, like something tracing letters on the inside of the wall. He aims the camera toward the sound. The drywall begins to crack, line by line, each forming a jagged stroke until a crude word appears. Here. He freezes in place. "Lena, please, stop doing this." The wall cracks again. New letters begin forming under the first. A.M. Then a long pause. Then the final word. Keith. Camera shakes so violently the frame dances with static. A small drip of something dark slides down the wall beneath the message. Not paint. Something thicker. Warmer. Red-brown. Organic. He drops to his knees, whispering in a child's trembling voice, "I'm going to get you out, I swear." A voice answers from inside the plaster. "You can't," he sobs. "Tell me what to do. Just please tell me how to help you." The wall hums in response. Then behind him, a door creaks open. He whips around. It's Lena's old bedroom door, the last room she was seen in, the room sealed by police tape. The same room that neighbors swore they heard growling from. The tape now lies shredded on the floor. The door pushes itself open, wider not, all at once, inch by inch, as though pushed by a trembling hand on the other side. He raises the camera, whispering, "Lena, if you're in there, I'm coming in." He takes a step closer. The door creaks louder. A low, shaky breath echoes from inside the room. Human-laced, but distorted by the strain of transformation. He reaches the doorway. Inside the room, the air shifts. The temperature drops like the room is inhaling frost. Moonlight bleeds through blinds in uneven stripes, cutting the darkness into trembling pieces. He enters slowly. The room is trashed, dresser overturned, claw marks on the wall, blood smeared across the floor in dragging patterns. A broken mirror lies near the window, glass splintered into glittering shards. The camera pans left and stops there, in the far corner. Something huddles in a trembling mass, half shadow, half fur, bone jutting beneath skin, a shape that looks like it's losing a war with its own body. Shoulders hunched, knees drawn up, breath wheezing through a half-formed snout. Fingers or paws dig into the floor, trying to anchor themselves. A soft, low whimper leaks into the room. He exhales her name, Lena. The shape lifts its head, one eye human, one eye golden and burning. The two halves of her face war against each other, one side trembling with the memory of humanity, the other snarling with raw wolf instinct desperate to take over. Her voice cracks out of her mangled throat. I can't hold much longer. He steps toward her, voice cracking. Then I'll help you. I'll get you out of here. I promise. The she-wolf flinches backward violently, clawed hand scraping deep grooves into the floor. No, stay. Back the walls. They want me. They want you. He reaches out anyway, because guilt outweighs fear, because she's all he has left, because he never believed in monsters until she became one. The walls shudder. A low moan like the entire apartment is waking up rolls through the room. Then, as he reaches for hers, the walls begin to close. Not metaphorically, literally. The room contracts. Floorboards curl upward at the edges. Blinds snap violently. Moonlight flickers as though strangled. He stumbles backward. The she-wolf looks up with sudden clarity, eyes widening. It's trying to keep us together. The walls pulse. The door behind him slams shut. He lunges toward it. A massive crack splits across the ceiling. Dust rains down. Lena screams. A sound nowhere near human anymore. The camera drops again, spinning across the room, capturing the last image before the clip ends. Her silhouette against the shrinking walls, half human, half wolf, jaws splitting, claws digging into the floorboards, eyes begging him to run while her body begs to tear him apart. The footage cuts to static. The recording kicks back in with the camera already in motion. The man sprinting down the hallway, gasping, the lens rattling like it's trying to escape his grip. But the hallway is wrong now. Longer, darker, moving. The wallpaper ripples like wet cloth stretched over breathing flesh. Floorboards pulse under his feet in slow waves. Like the apartment's heartbeat, he chokes on his breath. It's changing, God. It's changing around me, behind him. Something crashes. Lena's scream twisted into a snarling choke, as if two voices inside her throat are fighting for control. He glances back. The bedroom door shudders violently, bulging outward. Claw marks explode across, its surface like fire racing along old paper. He turns and runs, but the hallway stretches again, lengthening like a rubber band pulled between invisible fingers. No matter how fast he moves, the living room remains impossibly far away. The lights flicker above him, then darken entirely. Only the camera's night mode keeps the world visible. And barely, the walls begin to crawl. Yes, crawl. Like something large is inside them, moving from stud to stud, dragging itself through insulation and wiring. A sick, wet dragging sound follows him. A body too big for the space behind the plaster. SCRRRAAAAPE Scrara AAAAPE Scrara AAAAPE. He whispers. Oh God, it's not just her, something else is in the walls. The camera jerks as he trips, slamming onto the ground. The lens scrapes along the floorboards, revealing long grooves carved into them, deep, fresh, as though something hunted through this hallway. Earlier, he crawls forward. Just let me out, please let me out. The front door looms ahead. It looks almost normal again. Safe, stable. He stumbles toward it. The moment he touches the knob, the metal warps under his hand. Bending downward into a twisted shape like melted wax, he falls back with a scream. The floorboards beneath him bulge, upward as though something underneath is raising its back. He scrambles away from the walls. A low groan rises, a voice made of wood and insulation and hatred. Stay. He shivers violently. The drywall beside him splits open. A long, human-looking hand slides out, but the joints are wrong. The fingers bend backward, then forward, trembling like a puppet pulled by the wrong strings. He gasps, crawling backward. The hand flexes, then a second hand emerges from the tear, then a snout, then an eye, golden, bloodshot, feral, staring at him with recognition. Lena, but not Lena. Not anymore. And behind her, in the wall, darker shapes shift, as if something bigger is pushing forward behind her. She forces half her body through the wall, her spine cracking loudly as the house resists, trying to pull her back in. Her voice comes out thick, warped by fangs and pain. Ruin, he chokes. I'm trying. I can't. The house sits sudden silence. Then the entire apartment inhales. The walls contract inward with a thunderous crack. The hallway tightens so suddenly his shoulders nearly scrape both sides. Lena snarls, a sound like a wounded god fighting the wall's pull. Her claws gouge the floor as she drags herself forward another inch. Her bones shift again, violently, as though the transformation is being accelerated by pure terror. She slams a clawed hand onto the floor, dragging her half-used body toward him. He backs away, shaking his head. No, no. Don't stay there. I'll find another way. But she keeps coming. Her breathing is ragged, desperate, like someone drowning in their own body. Her human voice flickers somewhere inside the growls. It wants you, too. The house inhales again. Lights shatter overhead. Dust explodes into the air. Wood splinters as door frames twist into unnatural angles. Then from deeper in the walls, another growl. Not Lena's. Something heavier, older. A predator's growl, long, rumbling, impossibly deep. He freezes. Lena, what's in the walls with you? She whimpers, a horrible, animalistic, apologetic cry. Not alone. Then the wall beside her detonates outward in an explosion of plaster and fur. A massive shape slams into her, dragging her backward into the darkness. Her claws shred the floorboards as she tries to hold on. Her human eye finds his again. Tears spill down her fur, her voice split between monster and sister screams. Run, damn, you run. He bolts toward the kitchen, the only door. The house hasn't collapsed yet. The house groans in fury. Floorboards buckle behind him. The walls bulge outward as things crawl through them. Shadows rush across the ceiling like frantic storms. He throws himself into the kitchen, and the door slams shut behind him. Darkness, breath, his, something else's. The camera flickers. A deep, slow knock hits the other side of the kitchen wall. 1, 2, 3. The knock is answered from the wall behind him, then the wall to his left, then his right. The house is triangulating him, hunting him. He whispers, I'm not getting out of here, am I? The walls around him begin to crack open. The footage cuts to black. The footage reappears with a faint blue glow, the camera struggling to interpret NIGHTHOWL. Darkness. Moonlight leaks through a jagged crack in the kitchen blinds, cutting a thin white line across the floor. Dust floats through it like ash from something burning just outside of vision. The man whispers, Okay. Think. Just think. But he's not thinking. He's listening. Every muscle locked. Every breath held hostage by instinct. Something is behind the kitchen wall. Not crawling, not scratching, breathing long, slow, cavernous breaths. The sound of lungs too large for human anatomy. Dragging air through a throat built for devouring. The wall bulges forward, shifting like skin over a massive limb. Thump. Thump, thump. Each impact shakes dust from the ceiling. He backs into the opposite corner, the camera jerking downward as his hand slips on a puddle near the sink. The same dark, resin-like fluid from the bathroom, thick and metallic. He lifts the camera again. The wall across from him now has a spine, a vertical ridge running floor to ceiling, pressing forward like a body too big for the framework behind it. He whispers, choking on the words. That's not Lena. The ridge shifts, then another ridge appears beside it, then another. 3 long, arched spines, pushing through the plaster like ribs, swelling beneath thin skin. The drywall begins to split. Hairline cracks spiderweb outward. A deep, wet growl trembles through the room, so low it rattles the pots hanging by the stove. He aims the camera at the wall to his right. It bulges too. Something is moving fast inside us, one crawling along the studs within human speed. He jerks the camera to the left. The wall on that side bulges as well. He's surrounded, trapped in a shrinking box of breathing architecture. He whispers, "You were right. I should have run." A crack splits open above him. Small, at first, a thin line from ceiling to halfway down the wall. Then it widens. A long, clawed hand emerges through the opening. Not Lena's hand, not even close. The fingers are 3 times too long. Knuckles bend in unnatural convex angles. The nails aren't nails, they are thin, curved black talons like hooked bone. They scrape along the ceiling in slow, deliberate strokes, searching, mapping the room. Finding him. He covers his mouth to muffle his breath. Too late. The hand stops moving. The claws dig deep into the ceiling, like a spider anchoring itself before dropping. A second hand punches through the wall behind him. A third breaks through the cabinet by the sink, ripping the wood apart like cardboard. He whimpers, "Lena, is this what was with you?" Something slams against the opposite wall. A heavy, hulking impact that bows the plaster inward like a throat inhaling him. Another growl, louder this time, rolls through the walls like a lion's, or shoved through a long tunnel. The camera glitches, static lines cutting through the frame as whatever's inside the walls disrupts the M-field. He crawls backward under the kitchen table, gasping. The table legs tremble, the floor shudders. Hairline cracks dance along the tile. Then the wall splits open, not in a burst, not in a dramatic explosion. It peels like fruit rind, hurling away from rotten flesh. The plaster separates in long strips, falling away to reveal the interior. Not insulation, not wood, not wiring, a tunnel of slick, ribbed flesh, pulsing, breathing, dripping with thick strands of mucus. The inside of the wall looks alive, like a throat waiting to swallow something whole. And from that tunnel of living architecture ein eye opens, huge, gold, slit pupil, reflecting the moonlight. But the eye isn't Lena's. It's too large, too old, too aware. The pupil constricts as it focuses on him. Then the growl resumes, not a sound of hunger, but a sound of recognition. He whispers, "You're the thing in the walls. You ate the walls. You wore the walls." The eye blinks. The creature inhales, dragging air through a throat he can hear but can't see. Behind him, Lena screams again, somewhere inside a different wall. Her voice ragged, wet, not entirely human. He lifts the camera, tears streaking down his face. "What did you do to her?" The creature answers by stepping forward. The ribbed flesh tears around it as a massive furred shape pushes into the rapier. Her voice ragged, wet, not entirely human. He lifts the camera, tears streaking down his face. What did you do to her? What did you do to her? The creature answers by stepping forward. The ribbed flesh tears around it as a repeat room, shoulder first, then a long arm, then part of a chest covered in blackened fur. Wet with plaster and blood, the creature scrapes its claws across the floor, testing its new space. The house has been reshaping itself to let it out. He crawls backward until he hits the corner. No more room left. The creature leans its massive head through the gap. Its jaws split wider than any wolf's. Its fangs scrape the tile. A growl rumbles like a generator dying. And then behind the creature, further in the wall, Lena's human voice whispers, "Help me." His eyes fill with tears. He reaches toward her voice. The creature lunges. The footage cuts with a white-hot burst of static. The recording snaps back in with a hiss of static, then stabilizes into a crooked frame. The camera is lying on its side beneath the kitchen table, pointing outward through a forest of wooden chair legs and shadows. Everything is quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear your own hair shift when you breathe. Dust swirls through the air in thick, slow-moving clouds. The kitchen floor is cracked. The walls close in at angles that shouldn't exist. Like the room is a mouth learning how to chew. For several long seconds, nothing moves. Then dash footsteps. Heavy ones. Not like shoes, not like paws. Something in between. Something experimenting with the weight of its new body. A massive shadow crosses the beam of moonlight slicing through the blinds. The shape is hunched, wide-shouldered, dragging one arm like it's still growing into it. The man's voice breaks the silence, raw, whispered, terrified. "Lena, Lena, please, if you're still in there, give me something." Something answers, but not from the floor, from the ceiling. A soft, broken whimper filters down through the cracks overhead. The camera catches small flecks of debris falling like snow, then dash her voice, human, but barely, a wet, miserable whisper. "I'm stuck." He chokes. "Tell me, where, tell me, HOW, tell me what to do." She doesn't answer him. She answers the walls. The ceiling bulges downward. The drywall cracks into a dozen thin lines, like a web tightening around something trapped inside. Then the ceiling splits. A shard of plaster falls inches from the camera through the gap. An eye stares down. Human, desperate, alive. "I'm sorry," she whispers. He reaches upward on instinct, fingers brushing the broken plaster, trying to touch her. "Lena, please. I'm right here. I'm right." The building inhales, a powerful, cavernous breath, and Lena's human eye flicks upward in fear. "It found you." A deep growl erupts through the walls so loud the camera glitches, the image warping into digital ribbons. The creature is close, too close. He grabs the camera, crawling out from under the table. The lens jerks and blurs as he stumbles into the warped living room, every wall flexing like a throat reflex. "I'm getting you down, Lena. Look at me." A voice drips through the cracks. "Don't look behind you." He freezes. Slowly, trembling, he turns. The creature stands in the center of the living room, fully revealed now. A towering, malformed wolf thing with matted fur soaked in plaster dust and streaks of blood. Its spine curves in unnatural segments. Its jaw hangs open in a slow, dripping pant. Its claws scrape against the wood with a sound that vibrates the teeth. Its eyes, they're wrong. Not gold, not wolf. Black, black. Hollow, like two collapsed rooms staring at him from inside a skull. He whispers, shaking, "What are you?" The creature tilts its head. Bones grind. Flesh shifts. And then in a voice that isn't a voice, in a sound that feels like breath forced through drywall, it says, "Hungry." He stumbles backward. The creature advances. Each step bends the floorboards under its weight. Sierra seeketh the ceiling above him splits wider. Lena's hand, twisted, clawed, but still partly human, reaches down toward him. "Run." She sobs. "I'm trying." He screams. He bolts toward the hallway, but the hallway stretches again, lengthening into black corridors that pulse with rhythmic, breathing walls. The creature breaks into a lurching sprint. He screams. The camera captures only fragments. His hand hitting a doorknob, the knob melting under his touch, the wall beside him bursting outward, a long arm reaching. Another voice, maybe Lena's, maybe the house's, crying out in agony. He drops the camera without meaning to. It spins once, twice, lands facing the floor. The shadows of the creature's legs approach. Lena's voice shrieks in pure, awful terror. "Don't kill him," the creature roars. The walls roar with it. A final scream fills the mic. The footage cuts to black. A long strip of static follows, then a single whisper. "Still here." End of tape.